Level 1. The Job, Munich. Winter 1932. You are 24 years old. Your shoes have holes in the soles. You've stuffed newspaper inside them to stop the cold from reaching your feet. 8 months without work. 8 months of your mother not asking you when you'll find something because she already knows the answer hurts you more than her. You used to study engineering. 2 years in, the money ran out and so did the dream. Now you spend your mornings standing in lines outside factories that aren't hiring, and your afternoons pretending to your friends that you're still looking into a few things. Everyone is lying like that right now. The whole country is. Then your friend Walter finds you outside the bakery, breath fogging in the cold, and tells you there's an opening, a real one, paid, steady. Local party office, he says. Filing, answering phones, nothing political, just work. You almost laugh. Nothing is just work anymore. Not in 1932, not in a country where men your age are setting fires in the streets over who gets to run it. But you don't laugh. You just nod, because nodding is free and hunger is not. 3 days later, you're sitting across from a man named Brandt in a cramped office that smells like cigarette smoke and old paper. He doesn't ask about your politics. He asks if you can type, if you can show up on time, if you can keep your mouth shut about what crosses your desk. You say yes to all three. He hands you a stack of forms before you've even taken off your coat. The first week is exactly what they promised. Stamping documents, filing membership cards, answering a phone that rings constantly with men asking when the next rally is. You go home every night with ink on your fingers and nothing on your conscience because there is nothing yet to weigh on it. Friday comes, you get paid, real money, not charity, not a loan from your uncle, not your mother quietly leaving coins on your nightstand. Earned money. You walk home holding the small brown envelope like it might disappear if you stop touching it. Your mother sees your face before you even say a word. She doesn't ask what the job is. She just sees the envelope and she cries, not from pride, but from relief. The kind of relief that comes after months of watching your child slowly disappear into worry. That night you sleep with your stomach full for the first time in months. You don't ask what the party actually wants. You don't ask why they're hiring so fast, while every factory in the city is laying men off. You just decide that on Monday, you'll show up early. Level 2, the meeting. 3 weeks into the job, Brandt invites you somewhere different. Come tonight, he says, sliding a flyer across your desk, just to understand what we're actually part of. The beer hall is enormous, and it's packed, shoulder to shoulder, men in brown shirts, women holding children up on their shoulders to see over the crowd. The air is thick with smoke and beer, and a kind of electricity you've never felt in a room before. A regional leader takes the stage. Not the man you've seen on posters, someone smaller, local, but louder than anyone you've ever heard speak in person. He talks about humiliation, about a nation brought to its knees by men in foreign capitals who never had to live with the consequences. About the years after the war, the inflation that turned your father's life savings into wallpaper, the shame of asking for bread you couldn't afford. He talks about pride, about a Germany that stands up again, about enemies, vague at first, then less vague, who are responsible for everything that's gone wrong. And the crowd around you doesn't just listen, it roars. Men pound tables. Strangers grab your shoulder and shake it like you've just won something together. You feel something rising in your own chest that you haven't felt in years. Hope, not analysis, not agreement with every word. Just hope, raw, uncomplicated, desperately needed hope, the kind that floods into a man who has spent 8 months believing the world has no place for him. You clap. You don't fully understand what you're clapping for. You just know it feels like being part of something again after a year of feeling like nothing. Walking home afterward, your breath visible in the cold, Walter asks what you thought. He gets it, you say. You don't examine what it means. You don't ask which parts of the speech were truth and which were poison wrapped in the same sentence. You let the warmth of the room carry you all the way home, and you fall asleep still feeling it. You don't yet know that this feeling, this specific intoxicating relief of being told your suffering has a cause and a face, is the first door, and you've just walked through it without even noticing the frame. Level 3, the first compromise. Month 2. Brandt asks if you'd like to earn a little extra. Flyers, door to door, a few streets in the old quarter. Easy money, he says. And you need easy money more than you need anything else right now. You spend an afternoon walking from building to building, slipping paper under doors, exchanging polite nods with shopkeepers and grandmothers, and tired men coming home from work. It's almost pleasant. The sun is out. Your new shoes, bought with last week's pay, don't let the cold in anymore. Then you reach a small shop on the corner of Lindwurmstrasse, a tailor's shop. The name painted on the window is unmistakably Jewish. The man behind the counter takes one look at the flyer in your hand and shakes his head. Politely, firmly. He's not rude. He simply doesn't want it, and he says so, and goes back to his sewing. You shrug it off. Not every door says yes. But that evening, back at the office, Brandt asks which streets you covered. You mention it, almost as a joke, almost nothing. That one shop refused the flyer outright. Brandt doesn't laugh. He slides a notebook across the desk. Mark that address, he says. Just mark it down, for our records. You hesitate. Half a second, maybe less. Something in your stomach tightens. Some old instinct from childhood that knows when something is wrong even before your mind can explain why. Then you write it down anyway. You tell yourself it's nothing, a list, a record, bureaucracy, the same as every other form you've stamped this month. You don't ask what the list is for. You don't ask why a tailor declining a political flyer needs to be recorded anywhere at all. You go home. You eat dinner with your mother, who asks about your day, and you tell her it was ordinary. Filing, walking, nothing worth mentioning. That night, you sleep fine. Better than fine. You sleep the deep, easy sleep of a man with new shoes and a full stomach and a steady wage. You don't yet understand that the half-second of hesitation was the last clean moment you'll have for years. You crossed it so quietly that you didn't even feel the ground shift beneath you. Level 4, the promotion. 6 months in, and you barely recognize your own life. You've moved up, junior coordinator now, with your own small desk near the window instead of the shared table by the door. More pay. A title that makes your mother repeat it to the neighbors like a prayer. People in the office defer to you now, ask your opinion on small things, laugh a little louder at your jokes than they used to. You've stopped noticing the posters on the walls. The slogans painted across the office door used to make you flinch, just slightly when you first started. Now they're just wallpaper. You walk past them the way you walk past street lamps. One Tuesday morning, an older co-worker, a quiet man named Hoffman, who's worked there longer than you, who taught you how to file the membership cards correctly in your first week, gets pulled aside by 2 men you don't recognize. He doesn't come back to his desk that day. Someone mentions quietly over coffee that Hoffman asked too many questions, asked about funds, asked where certain money was actually going, asked once, too loudly, about a rumor concerning a man who'd vanished from a neighboring district. You don't ask what asked too many questions actually led to. You don't ask where Hoffman is now or whether anyone has checked on his wife. You take his desk. It's closer to the window, and the light is better for reading paperwork in the afternoon. Your mother tells you that you look healthier these days, eating better, sleeping better, standing straighter even. You agree with her because it's true, and because agreeing is easier than explaining what it cost. You don't mention the list from the tailor's shop. You don't mention Hoffman's empty chair. These things have simply become part of the furniture of your new life, present, visible, and somehow never discussed. At night, in the half-second before sleep takes you, something flickers. A small, cold question with no good answer. You let it pass, the same way you let the half-second hesitation pass 6 months ago. It gets easier every time. That's the part nobody warns you about. It gets easier. Level 5. The uniform. It's 1934 now, and the offer comes almost casually. A formal party roll, full title, and a uniform that arrives in a box wrapped in brown paper, like a gift. You put it on for the first time in your bedroom mirror, and you barely recognize the man looking back at you. The fabric is sharp. The boots are heavier than you expected. You stand a little taller without meaning to. The first time you wear it outside, walking to meet old friends from your engineering days, 2 of them go quiet when you sit down. One looks almost proud, slapping your shoulder, asking what it's like having real authority now. The other, Walter, the one who got you the job in the first place, just looks at you for a long moment and then changes the subject to something safer. You walk home through your old neighborhood that evening, and the street feels different beneath your boots. People who used to walk past you without a glance now nod as you pass. Some go further, a small salute, a murmured greeting with your title attached to it. It feels, for the first time in your adult life, like being seen, like mattering, like the 8 months of holes in your shoes and your mother's silent worry were erased by a single piece of cloth and a title on a letterhead. Power, you're discovering, doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it arrives as warmth, as respect, as the specific addictive relief of walking into a room and watching people adjust their posture because of you. Near the old university, your former engineering professor stops you on the street. He's older now, thinner, his coat patched at the elbows. He looks at the uniform for a long moment before he speaks. "Do you still remember," he asks quietly, "what you used to believe in before all this?" You tell him things have changed. The country has changed. You've simply changed with it, the way any sensible man would. He shakes his head slowly. "No," he says, "you haven't changed with it. You've become it." He walks away before you can answer. You stand there on the cold pavement for a long moment, the warmth of the uniform suddenly feeling less like comfort and more like weight. That night, for the first time in months, you don't sleep well. Level 6, the order. By 1936, your role has expanded into something with real authority attached to it. Authority over decisions, over paperwork that quietly determines other people's lives. A directive arrives on your desk one gray morning in a sealed folder. Names, addresses, a list of businesses to be reviewed. The word chosen carefully, vaguely, by someone higher up who understands exactly how much comfort a vague word provides to the man who has to act on it. You open the folder and scan the names, and something in your chest goes cold. You recognize several of them. A family who used to run the pharmacy near your old apartment. A man you played football with as a boy, whose father owns a small bakery 3 streets from your mother's house. The same bakery where you bought bread every Sunday as a child, where the smell of fresh rolls used to mean home. You're told by a superior who doesn't quite meet your eyes when he says it, that this is simply procedure. Standard compliance. Paperwork that needs a signature, nothing more. The actual consequences, if there are any, belong to other departments, other men, other decisions entirely removed from this desk and this pen. You sign it anyway. Your hand doesn't even shake. That's the part that will haunt you years later. Not that you signed it, but how easy the motion was, how indistinguishable it felt from signing a receipt or a leave request. 2 days later, walking past the bakery on your way to your mother's house, you see the front window shattered, glass scattered across the cobblestones, glittering in the morning light like something almost beautiful, if you didn't know what it actually was. You don't stop walking. You don't look inside to see if the family is hurt, or gone, or hiding in the back room waiting for the street to go quiet. You tell yourself, walking the rest of the way to your mother's door, "I didn't break that glass. I didn't throw anything. I only signed a piece of paper in an office days ago, far away from this street and this morning." You believe it, mostly. The part of you that doesn't believe it gets quieter every day, the way a voice gets quieter the longer you refuse to listen to it. Level 7, the silence. By 1938, you're seeing things you will spend the rest of your life trying not to remember. Men taken from their homes at night, the sound of boots on stairwells echoing through buildings that used to be quiet. Families who are simply gone by morning. Furniture left behind, plates still in the sink, as though they'd stepped out for a moment and would surely return. Train manifests cross your desk now with disturbing regularity. Numbers where names used to be. Destinations listed in clipped, bureaucratic shorthand that tells you nothing and somehow tells you everything, if you let yourself actually read it. One evening, alone in the office with a superior you've worked alongside for 2 years, you finally ask the question that's been sitting in your throat for months. "What happens to them?" you ask quietly. "The ones on these lists, where do they actually go?" He looks at you for a long, heavy moment, long enough that you understand the answer before he even opens his mouth. Don't ask that again, he says. And you don't. You go home that night. You eat dinner with your wife, who you married the previous spring, in a small apartment with curtains she sewed herself. You kiss her goodnight. You sleep eventually, the way men sleep when they've trained themselves not to dream. You have learned by this point the single most dangerous skill the regime requires of ordinary men. Not cruelty, not hatred, but the precise, practiced art of not seeing what is directly in front of you, of letting your eyes slide past broken windows and empty apartments and numbers where names should be, the same way they slide past a crack in the pavement you've walked over 100 times. You are not a monster, you tell yourself. You have never raised a hand against anyone. You have never shouted a slur in the street, never broken a window, never pulled a trigger. You have only ever signed papers, marked addresses, and looked away on schedule. You do not yet understand that this, precisely this, the quiet, deniable, paper-pushing complicity of men exactly like you, is the machinery the entire system actually runs on. The men who pull triggers are rare. The men who make it possible for triggers to be pulled, again and again, without ever touching one themselves. There are millions of you, and the system was built, brick by brick, specifically to need you. Level 8. The cost. By 1943, the war has turned, and the violence that once happened to other families on other streets has finally found its way to your own front door. Bombs fall on your city now. Your city. The one with the bakery and the pharmacy and the beer hall where you first felt that intoxicating rush of hope 11 years ago. The sirens wake you most nights. You and your wife huddle in the cellar with your neighbors, listening to the distant thunder of a war you helped feed, one signature at a time, without ever once holding a weapon. The young men who once disappeared quietly into trains, the ones whose names you marked on lists years ago, have been replaced now by a new wave of the missing. Your own neighbors' sons, drafted and sent east, swallowed by a front line that seems to consume an entire generation and give almost nothing back. Your younger brother Eric is one of them, missing since the spring thaw. No letter in 4 months. Your mother lights a candle every night and refuses out loud to consider what the silence might mean. And somewhere in the wreckage of your own city, in the rubble where the bakery used to stand, in the empty apartments you walked past without looking 5 years ago, you finally allow yourself to understand completely what those lists actually became, what those trains were actually for, what your signature all those years ago actually helped to build. You did not personally pull a trigger. You did not build a single brick of a single camp. You never once raised your voice in hatred at a stranger on the street. You stamped papers. You marked addresses on a notebook page. You looked away, on schedule, year after year, until looking away became as natural as breathing. It was enough. That is the unbearable truth you sit with now, in a cellar, listening to your own city burn. It was enough to be one small, quiet, deniable piece of something enormous and monstrous. The machine never needed you to be a monster. It only ever needed you to be useful and obedient and willing to not ask questions at exactly the right moments. You think of the tailor's shop. You think of Hoffman's empty chair. You think of the bakery owner's son you played football with as a boy. You wonder, for the first time in over a decade, whether any of them are still alive to know what became of the country you helped build for them. Level 9. The Reckoning. By the spring of 1945, soldiers moved door to door through what's left of your city. Different uniforms now, different language. The war finally arriving at the only address it was always going to reach eventually. Yours. You burn your party card in the kitchen sink the night before they reach your street, watching the photograph on it curl and blacken at the edges. It feels like nothing. It changes nothing. You know this even as you're doing it. The gesture is for no one but yourself. A small, useless attempt to erase 13 years with a match. When they come for you, you tell them what you've told yourself every night for over a decade. That you were just a clerk. That you filed papers. That you didn't know what any of it actually meant. That you were simply a small man doing a small job in a very large machine that no one person could ever fully see. They show you documents instead of arguing with you. Your own handwriting, faded but unmistakable, on a notebook page from 1932. A tailor's address marked at your own hand in your own careful, dutiful penmanship. A signature from 1936 authorizing the review of businesses whose owners you once knew by name. You stare at your own writing like it belongs to a stranger, but it doesn't. It belongs to you. It always belonged to you. You did know. Somewhere underneath all the careful not asking and the practiced not seeing, you always knew exactly what you were a part of. You simply arranged your life year after year so that you would never have to watch the consequences land. You let other men pull the triggers so that your own hands could stay clean enough to sleep at night. That was never innocence. It was only distance. Carefully, deliberately maintained distance, paid for with a uniform, a desk by the window, and 13 years of silence. Level 10, the question. Decades pass. You grow old in a country that spends the rest of the century trying to understand what happened to it, and to men exactly like you. Your grandchildren sitting at your kitchen table on a quiet Sunday afternoon ask you what you did during the war. You tell them you kept your head down, that you stayed out of trouble, that you were just trying to survive like everyone else, that there wasn't much choice for ordinary people back then. They nod. They don't ask again. It's easier for everyone that way. For them, for you, for the version of yourself you've spent 50 years constructing in place of the truth. But at night, when the house is quiet and sleep doesn't come easily anymore, you still see it. The shattered window of the bakery, glittering on the cobblestones in the morning light. The boy you played football with as a child, whose father's shop you helped mark for ruin with a single signature. Hoffman's empty chair, closer to the window, with better light for paperwork. You never pulled a trigger in your entire life. You never once raised your hand in violence against another human being. You simply never said no. Not once. Not at any of the dozen small moments when saying no might have actually mattered, when the cost of refusing was still small enough to bear. And that, in the end, was the only job you ever truly signed up for. The day, decades ago, when you needed a pair of new shoes more than you needed a conscience, and the world quietly, patiently, waited to see which one you'd choose to keep.